Nick, you're a photographer, and there's loads of photographers. Fortunately, we have very specialized photographers on Marketing Crew, and but I'm not sure that everybody knows where your specialization is, especially maybe people that have only known you a little while. I know where I tend to think, where I did think about where who I would put you in touch with, so I was really wanting to know a little bit more about who your target market is, who your specific audience is, and
yeah, sure. And I think I've had lots of chats with lots of you over the years, so you'll probably know a little bit about me. But I think my business has evolved over the last couple of years, particularly at the beginning of the kind of COVID pandemic. I was still doing a bit of consumer photography, and 2 years ago the business shifted to almost entirely B2B. So there's like a lot of photographers who are quite diversified in their markets, I took the decision to niche into the business market purely. And I've now got kind of 4 segments that sit within B2B. The first one is a segment of solopreneurs. But these could be any business really in any sector where the business owner is the sole owner and the face of their brand. But they tend to be businesses that are established. So I'm not typically working with startup solopreneurs. They tend to be businesses that are maybe 1, 2, 3 years into their business cycle. And they primarily because businesses of that maturity tend to have the need for more photography. I think when a business first starts out, they might need photography, but they don't necessarily know what their market is yet, and they're doing lots of things. They might actually be quite cash strapped in terms of budget because they're spending the money on lots of different things. And I find that working with businesses that are a little bit more mature, maybe they're onto their second iteration of their website, or they're clear about their brand positioning, they're probably in a better position to be investing in branding photography for their business. And that's where, a bit like with Marcus, we're helping those clients create content that tells a visual story, builds a relationship with their customers, through either their social media content or their website, and allows their audience to lean in and get to know them a bit better. For some people, some businesses, they only want a headshot, either because of budget or because actually that's all they think they need for their business. And I'm very happy to work with people who just want a headshot, and quite often a headshot can lead on to other work further down the line. So I never kind of walk away from a headshot. I'm always happy to work with people, but I tend to market myself more into the kind of personal branding arena for solopreneurs. The second area are building collaborations with web designers, so people like Ollie and Andrew and Martin Kerslake, so other businesses that are creating visual content for their customers. And we have a kind of, I guess, a natural synergy because Andrew's clients and Ollie's clients and Martin's clients are probably very similar to my clients. And quite often, when Ollie and Andrew are building websites, some of their clients may need photography. The web designers may have identified there's a need for photography. Some of those clients may be happy with just stock photography, and there might be a conversation going on between the web designer and the client as to whether they actually need bespoke content rather than stock content. So part of my role there is to try and build collaborations and relationships with web designers, and also educate them around the benefits of putting bespoke content on a website rather than stock. And that's very much a kind of long-term education process, and building relationships with, I guess, like-minded web designers and graphic designers who see the value in bespoke content. And I think both Andrew and Ollie are kind of on the same page there in terms of the benefits that brings to their client relationships. So that's a second category. The third category is SMEs. So it's offering the similar services in terms of the business storytelling content, but this tends to be for larger businesses that may want to tell a story around the people in their organization. Quite often the people that are behind the scenes in a business, there's really rich storytelling content to bring to life. So it's trying to help those organizations unpick what content they can create for their social media and for their website. It could be around the people in the business. It could be around work they do with their charitable partners. It could be anything that really kind of tells a story about that business. And it's helping, quite often the relationship about helping those businesses identify what those visual stories are and helping them bring it to life. And then the final segment, I suppose, in terms of customers is, and it kind of overlaps the SME category, but it's the food and drink sector, because I've got a background in food and drink. I'm a member of an organisation called Cotswold Taste, which promotes food producers, food and drink producers in the Cotswolds, which is very close to where I live. I'm not looking to work with large global PLC food and drink producers, because they tend to have big internal marketing departments and they work with big agencies like Saatchi, whoever. But I'm looking, it's more the smaller food and drink producers who have a really interesting story to tell about how their business has come to life, the journey of the products they create, and there's some really rich storytelling content there. So that overlaps with the kind of SME category I touched on earlier. But the overarching theme is people and helping businesses bring their stories to life around their people, so that their customers and their audience can build a connection with that business and with the people in that business. I don't know how that's quite a long overview, isn't it? So
actually a very concise overview. And you've got 3 target audience and 1 sector that reaches into that target audience. So I would imagine most creative businesses, or contributing to the creativity of a company, they also could be very valuable.
Yes. Yeah. So there are brand managers or marketing managers within an organisation.
Yeah. Anybody, any questions on that? Yes, Andrew.
It's just said something very interesting, actually, and that's been quite instructive to me. So I always struggle to get, and I always try it, I always struggle to get Nick and Marcus in front of my clients. And I don't know, well, I do know why, it's budget. But Nick's just hit the nail on the head. Because what he's just said is that because of the budgets issue, him and Marcus as well, they work with people that are on their second iteration, whereas I tend to work people on their first. Now, what's interesting at the moment is, because I've been working with people for a number of years, quite a lot of these businesses are getting to that point now where they're starting to have their business have grown. So I now see, certainly this year, more opportunity with people I've got great relationships with, of getting these guys in front of them. But that's definitely been something I've been banging my head against for ages. And you always ask, and we'll do all the, everything, because I know how good these guys are, but people just haven't got a budget, and now hopefully that can start changing with this. And also I'm getting into sort of slightly larger projects as well. So that's really instructive, actually. Hearing Nick say that absolutely hit the nail on the head. That.
Yeah, because you're quite often working, I guess, Andrew, with people who have maybe just got a Facebook site at the moment, haven't they? So and for you,
absolutely. First iteration stuff. I've just started, I've got no budget. I've had people, I can't afford a copyright, just like, please don't write this yourself. But they do, because I've got a budget, so. But as I say, my business is moving on now, and that's going to allow me to sort of hopefully get yourself and Marcus involved with these guys. So no, that's brilliant. I think that's very instructive the way you put that, mate.
Yeah, it's an interesting journey you've just explained there, Andrew, in terms of how your clients are moving now from their first website to the second, and hopefully they're staying with you as well throughout that process, because
very much.
Well,
got great relationships, and they're basically sort of revamping and adding more bits on and stuff like that. And I think this is where you guys can get some proper traction.
As we develop this further, and as we start to interview other people, there's a good lesson to be learned from what Nick has done, and that is, he's explained, for instance, he said solopreneurs. Well, that's very wide, but he's narrowed it down to the ones that he does tend to work with, and the reason why, and the people he doesn't. And he's been quite accepting of the fact they've got limited budget and they probably would take their own photographs to begin with. Maybe there's an opportunity there to at least have a guide or some video or whatever, some tips. If you're going to do your own photography, here's some tips as to how you can take your own photographs with an iPhone. And you're not giving anything away. It could be lighting, it could be rule of thirds. I think Marcus does something like this with the course that he has. And that could give you that, it could give somebody like Andrew that opportunity to introduce you, to say, look, you probably haven't got the budget right now. It's not about that. They don't see the value of it right now, and they will have a limited budget. But I still want to introduce you to Nick, because he gives some very useful tips on how you can do some of this yourself at this.
Well, I've just come to the end of I guess we call it a big project, Ollie. I've been working quite closely with Ollie on my SEO, and we've probably written about 10 FAQ blogs for each of the different services that I have. And Ollie's, he brought some brilliant insight to that process. Historically, I always wrote in my blogs what I thought people were interested in. And for the first time, I'm writing content that through Ollie's research, we know people are actually searching for and they're interested in. But not only that, it's a great kind of pool of content, but I can also repurpose it. I can guide people towards particular blogs when they have a question. So I use it now as part of my initial kind of onboarding process. And when I'm talking to a new client, I often send them to FAQs, and then they can self-serve and they can find what they're interested in. But I mean, I have to really kind of big up the process that Ollie has helped me with here in terms of the insight that without the insight, I couldn't have done it. I would have been kind of shooting blind and writing my own content as usual. So I've written content with purpose for the first time.
Rather than Andrew, his efforts reach a full stop, say, would you have any objection if I put you in touch with Nick? He's a fantastic resource. I'm not sure that you're within his client target at the moment, but I know that he'll point you to wherever you need to go to in terms of your photographic imagery.
Yeah.
And some of those people will make that connection. And at least if you know that person's at the very early stages, you could have a way in which you stay in touch. Marcus?
I'm looking for a new target market for myself at the moment, and it's hairdressing salons, which I've had quite a lot of experience with in the past, but never really thought about pursuing. And what I'm doing at the moment is I'm doing my research, really. I'm trying to find out what they need, what they're lacking, looking at websites. I've got a couple of meetings with some quite prominent salons coming up, and no agenda really, just finding out, a little bit more about the market. So maybe, that's what I do. I sort of really look for a very sort of small field that I can work in, and then try and do my research on it.
That's also got a really strong fit, Marcus, hasn't it, with what you do now, but also what you've done over previous years in terms of the fashion industry. So that sounds like a perfect segment for you.
Yeah, you want to be talking the same language, don't you, really?
Yeah.
And if they talk hair, I can talk hair to a degree,
And you see, it's the food and drink to him is the hair and beauty to Marcus. Maybe you ought to have a one-to-one with Ollie to find out a little bit more about how to address what people are looking for. I tend to go Marcus's route. I decide what they should be looking for, but
well, that's what I always did, Paul. I think if you write what you think people want, you can easily get it wrong. You look at it from your perspective only.
I'd go along with the 5 major mistakes hairdressers make when they publicize photographs for their clients to attract clients, something like that. Anybody else in a position to? It's a little bit shorter time. We ran over a little bit, but anybody any other questions for Marcus or potential?
Nick,
Tracy.
Nick.
For Nick. Sorry, Nick.
So I've got just an idea, or certainly a connection for you, but this is interesting. So a friend of mine is content and branding, but he works for an agency. And let me read you their strapline that's come from their Google search. We're Hills Green, passionate about rural marketing, and we're passionate about inspiring, challenging, and growing agribusiness. And that's it. So I get what they do, but particularly they work with a lot of farmers and agricultural businesses that have food that they produce. Internally. And I've just checked their website. They do have an in-house photographer, but it's a 6-7 person team. So I think that they're not only could that be a great connection, because I'm fairly the guy that does their business development. I'll put you in touch with him, but that's also someone else. I see it's really useful the way that you approach web designers, but there will also be other businesses that target your target audience that have that degree of relationship and will require your assets to enable them to do their job better. So we're developing.
Good point, Jason.
look for agencies that focus in the food and drink world as well. Same for you, Marcus. Agencies that specialize in helping beauty and hair industries, marketing agencies.
Yeah, I'm in touch with a couple of PR agencies, Jason, who specialize in the food and drink sector. So I think they, by the PR agencies, by default, they need content when they're writing, creating content for their clients.
That's a good point. We tend to dismiss PR nowadays because it's all social, but PR are involved in social, and PR is obviously a good one. I also suggested to Nick last week that he attends the Wales food exhibition, the food fair that we have in the autumn. And if he can, we'll get the date for that. It should be online anyway, but it'd be good to meet up and introduce you to a number of food producers that both I and Rod knows. I don't know whether Rod's still on, but I know he's got a funeral to go to do today. Any other questions on, thank you for that, Jason. Again, given what we said earlier, it'd be good for you to just briefly talk to one another, find out about how well you know this person and how you make that introduction. Marcus.
Nick, have you tried the old-fashioned approach, which is putting your portfolio under your arm and going around to show it to people?
What, the kind of walk and talk approach of just
going into places with your portfolio under your arm, printed out on a nice big leather-bound book? I've got a few of them.
Do you know what, Marcus? I tried that during COVID with some. In fact, not that long ago, and I found that so many business centres now, the doors were just locked. You could not physically get in the building. Now, I'm sure that will be changing now, but there were all the businesses had basically just locked the frontage and there were security people there, and you couldn't. It's very difficult now to get past the security desk and actually talk to people. So yeah, I have tried it, and I've found it almost impossible to get to decision makers. And
it's very difficult.
Yeah.
I remember when I used to go and see advertising companies, Nick, you'd have to book up a year in advance.
Yeah.
A year. It's like, what? How can anybody be a year in advance? But that's all you did, and so there was no other choice. But
there was no LinkedIn.
People still like to see your work in a print and in a book, and you can talk it through with them, especially personal work.
Yeah.
Well, we've got 4 areas there that, if for those of us going on Friday, we can give some. At least we know a little bit more about Nick and about who he would want introductions to, and the hairdressing world, the beauty world is another area for Marcus. Ollie, you got a point?
Yeah, I was going to say a really good tool for Nick and probably a lot of others actually is there's a website called Scrapio. So it's scrap, scrap.io. And on there, it basically scrapes data from Google Maps, and you can put in the name of the type of company you want to get in front of, so maybe food producers. Then you put in the location, so Swindon, Chippenham, Bath, that kind of thing. And then it will give you a list of all of those businesses, all of their social media, all of their email address, website address, things like that. And so you've got a great resource then that you can, like Marcus says, you can hit with maybe taking your portfolio to or connecting with on LinkedIn, that sort of place. Yeah.
I've not heard that before. Ollie, that's great. Thank you.
Always at exhibitions now that they're opening, a very fast way to meet people, and a lot of people in one place.
Yeah.
I know Marcus and I are talking about going to Salon 22 this year. So if you're wanting food or drinks, then obviously finding out similar events like Cotswold Taste, Somerset Taste, we should watch out for that. And very often the Somerset Taste Awards